Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan, and it's time for another requested Comic Vault. This one comes from Ian McKee on Patreon, who has a standing request for Smallville Season 11, and this time we're on Volume 3. It's been a few months since I've done this, so I'm going to do my best to remember everything that happened in those first couple of volumes, but I think it's all coming back to me as I'm looking at this. This one is called Haunted, because it's a Smallville episode, so of course it has to have a one-word episode title, and we have multiple subplots with different characters that are each haunted by different kinds of things. So these plots are each kind of more thematically related than they're interweaving together, but there is some of that. There is some conversions, particularly with a couple of stories at the end. Now, the Chloe story and the Lex story connect at the end in something of a convenient way, but we'll talk about that. So first of all, you have Lex Luthor, who is haunted by still his sister. In his mind, her personality has been in his head for a long time, since the beginning of this book, and we've been kind of waiting to see when he's finally going to lose her out of his brain, and if he's going to find out some of her secrets. And he is also just kind of more broadly haunted by his past, given that he has amnesia, and with the stupid last episode of that show, which wiped his memory, and he doesn't remember any of the awful things that he did to people. We're going to have a character later, the villain Simon, who has telepathic powers, which I think we're using that character because we have a lot of going into people's mind, that things in this particular volume. That's kind of a motif here. We do that with Chloe as well. So he's haunted by his past in general, and there is still that kind of nice nature nurture question that you had in the show with Lex Luthor. We're trying to get back to that because we're stuck with just the worst possible status quo, and I think Miller's making the best of it that he can. I don't know in the actual show how much he's to blame for where we went with that at the end, because he was on the writing staff, but he's making up for it as much as he can in kind of getting back to brass tacks with Lex Luthor and asking kind of, in a way, almost like a reverse Minority Report kind of question, saying, is Lex responsible for everything that that he did, all of the unconscionable choices he made in the name of scientific research and morbid curiosity in trying to figure out Clark's secret and the secrets of the universe at large, the secrets of, Krypton and extraterrestrials and things. He used people, he hurt people, he killed people, he was responsible indirectly for the deaths of people that he knew about. He straight up stabbed his sister with a knife and killed her. All kinds of terrible, horrible, no good, very bad things. And but he doesn't have any memory of it. That was wiped. So is he a different person now, or is he the same guy? Is he able to get past that? He's still using some of those maneuvers here, but in the name of learning who he was. And might he be a better man if he just never found out about that? Maybe ignorance would be bliss, and he could go on and be the man that Lex was trying to be when he was trying to get out from under his father's thumb. And in a way, it's like he is his own father now. It's like he's trying to... I don't think to the same extent that first, second season Lex had, but there is a little bit of, if not a noble quality to this Lex. He's narcissistic, but I think in his way he wants to do the right thing. I think he does care about making the world a better place. But then very often with the Lex Luthor character in general, that's the problem, is that he thinks he's got delusions of grandeur, and he's the guy who can fix the planet and solve everything. And it's not about individuals. It's not about helping people. It's about his legacy and him being the man who saved the world, which is very different from what Superman does. And we're kind of back to the original ideas there, which is really nice. I really appreciate. And then we also have Bart Allen, who shows up at the end of the first issue here, and he's of course Impulse. He had to be called that in the series because DC wouldn't let them use the Flash name at that point. And the first episode he appears in, which we reference quite a bit in this volume, uh, had lots of Flash references, and in fact, we bring back and try to give it an explanation, which is amusing. That whole that idea that he is that he stole the personalities, not the personalities. He stole the identities, excuse me, of several other characters named Flash, which in the show was just a cute reference. Here, we make it a big mythology thing. So the reason he had cards pretending to be Barry Allen and Jay Garrick and characters like that is because all of those actual characters' names and faces came to him in the Speed Force because they're all connected. So he actually did that because he knows who those people are. And I think that's a really cool explanation, if there has to be an explanation for that. And Brian Miller does a really good job of, and I've talked about this before, of being still very much Smallville, like telling stories the way that show did, but being really tongue-in-cheek about it. So it doesn't take itself too seriously, and that actually allows me to enjoy the drama and character work, and even when there's tragedy, the tragedy of it, in a way that was harder in Smallville, because even when that stuff was handled well, even when you had episodes like Ryan and stuff, and I'm reminded of Ryan a lot here with the way Bart is handled, we have, because the end of this is really sad and tragic, and I'm going to give away the ending here, so spoiler alert, I will spoil things, as I often do in the Comic Vault, but even when you had episodes like that, by and large, the series just took itself too seriously, thought it was cleverer than it was, kind of had its own delusion of grandeur, really, and then later on in the series, especially in the back half, kind of felt like it just didn't care and did whatever silly, bizarre things came to mind, and was not, true enough to its characters, and it was, anyway, it got really unfortunate. Miller understands what Smallville was, and he makes it better by having the tongue-in-cheek quality that show really needed that it very often just didn't have. It was too earnest about some of that stuff, and that's one of the things that I most respect about this series. This is, by the way, my favorite volume so far. I really, really enjoyed this. I think it's quite good overall. So you've got those two characters that are Bart Allen is haunted by the Black Racer, who shows up whenever he goes fast enough using the Speed Force, and so he brings in Superman, kind of like he does in his first appearance, where there's always something more going on with Bart Allen than you realize initially, and he's being a little bit duplicitous, but for like the right reasons, kind of his heart's in the right place. He is a lot more responsible and grown up than he was before, but he feels very much like the same guy. He still talks like Bart Allen did in that show. He still says amigo all the time and stuff, but kind of as callbacks to the kid that he used to be. He's a lot more, like I said, responsible and heroic, and to the point where when we meet Jay Garrick at the end of this, he's going to really dress him down for not doing the right thing and not being heroic enough, and not living up to the standards set by the Justice Society that he used to be a part of. I really like the way Bart is written in this, and that makes what happens to him at the end hurt even more. It kind of turns the knife. I don't know if I completely buy that he needs to make the sacrifice he does. He does die at the end of this, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, but I like it. Here's that Simon character that I mentioned at the beginning. So Lex is haunted, or did I mention him? I forget. Lex is haunted by Tess Mercer, but he's also haunted by just generally his own past and the experiments that he did on people like Bart Allen, and I like that that's referenced again here. Now that Lex has to deal with it, it's really smart in like discussing certain thematic ideas and certain histories that have to do with each of these subplots within those subplots, without those different stories actually having to interweave too much, and I was kind of impressed with that. So Simon is trying to get revenge on Lex for giving him superpowers that are a curse. One of the big thematic ideas in this volume is superpowers and whether or not they're a blessing or a curse. And we get a nice speech from Superman toward the end where he tells Jay Garrick that Powers are only a curse and not a blessing if you let them control you and you don't find a way to get to get on top of them and use them as a part of you. And that's kind of the thing that Simon here is going through. And he is brought in, I think, because he has mind powers, and there's kind of a mind power motif throughout this, and that is connected to our third plot, which is Chloe Sullivan and the coming of the crisis that we were told about in the first volume. So at some point, we're going to get to Smallville's Crisis on Infinite Earths, I assume. And we have gotten hints of this. We were told that there was a crisis coming in the first volume by Chloe's doppelganger from another universe. Here we learn that that universe is Earth 2. I don't think we were told that before because there was no way that we could know anything that the doppelganger Chloe knew because she died. And here we get her whole backstory and we get where she came from. And at first I was like, oh no, I gotta go back and look at Earth 2. I hate the Earth 2, that season 10 stuff. It's awful, and it's overly silly, and they kind of pretend like they're the first thing to ever do a Star Trek-esque mirror universe. I always just call it the knockoff mirror universe, the Smallville knockoff mirror universe, where you have Clark Luthor, who's raised by Lionel Luthor and becomes the typical evil, despotic Superman, kind of rules with an iron thumb. Nobody can stop him, so they just kind of try to live with it. So here you have Chloe from another universe. We find out trying to do an underground rebellion with her Oliver Queen, who I think I guess she's not in love with. He's supposed to marry Lois Lane, but maybe she's also in love with him. Maybe that's supposed to sort of be a Smallville love triangle, but we don't really get into it, which is always nice. And anyway, so she tries to kill Clark, the evil Superman there, Ultraman, and he figures out what they're doing before she has a chance to, and then she ends up escaping and coming over to our Earth, where she is ultimately killed by the Monitor, who is, we find out, from a race of monitors that all want to do basically what the Anti-Monitor wanted in the original Crisis, which is to get rid of all of reality because he cares about order, and reality is chaos. So logic dictates that reality itself must go, and that's why they're slowly getting rid of the multiverse dimension by dimension, and her universe is destroyed. And so anyway, Chloe is kind of haunted by her in that she gets to experience, or I guess maybe gets to is not the right way to put it. Unfortunately, she has to experience her memories, the doppelganger's memories, through a mind device that Lex had, I think, in the show late, and that we used with Hank Henshaw in the first volume of this book. So the reason, so I'll kind of jump subplot to subplot for a minute. The reason that Bart comes to Superman is because he wants him to help try to take down the Black Racer. He's not sure how to do that. We have a really nice sense of continuity here, and despite the fact that Smallville could not keep track of its own and was constantly retconning things, where we get back to the idea that Bart runs faster than Superman does. We're talking about that silly notion again that now that Superman can fly, he can't run as fast, which I think is really stupid, but whatever. I do like that we're using the fact that Bart is faster than Superman as a major plot point for this. At first, he can't see the Black Racer because he can't go fast enough in order to see him, and Bart is afraid that he's just crazy. And in fact, he kind of hopes that he is crazy because that would be better than being haunted by this scary speed demon. And he says the first time he saw it was when Lex tortured him in the episode that I think it's the episode that's established in the Justice League, where he where he's trying to test the limits of his speed, and it's really sad what he does to him. He just makes him run really fast for forever. And anyway, he sees the Black Racer there. That's where that first happens, and he says that he tried to tell Clark about it, but he didn't understand what he was saying or something. And I kind of want to go back and look at that episode now and see if there's any hint of that, or if that's all totally retroactive. I'm assuming that's kind of retroactive, but anyway. So eventually, Superman is indeed going to see the Black Racer using technology with Emil Hamilton, where he's going to run on treadmills. They haven't made the cosmic treadmill yet. I kind of wonder if that will end up happening. But is it the cosmic treadmill? I think that's what that's called. The treadmill that makes you run really fast and gets you into the Speed Force and lets you time travel. And I want to talk about the scene in a second because it's great. But anyway, so they'll run really fast together. That's going to augment Superman's ability to run fast, and then he'll see the Black Racer, and then they go to Jay Garrick. And Jay Garrick explains that he's kind of that he's not proud of the life he's led since the Justice Society, and that he has been kind of a coward and didn't deal with the Black Racer. So we'll get to that in a second. With Simon, we find out that Lex is now, as he's learning about Project Ares and other in Level 3 and other experiments that he and his father ran back in the day, he's starting to try to cover his tracks and clean up things that I guess they just never dealt with. And that leads Lois to go to Smallville and Smallville Metropolis. I'm actually not sure where we are here, but I think this actually is in Metropolis. But anyway, they go to a cleanup site where there was a bunch of kryptonite involved in Luthor Corp experimentations, and there's this great exchange that she has with a guy who is going to he's kind of a red shirt, like in Star Trek. He's going to get killed really quickly by the Black Racer, and we're going to do that Smallville thing where somebody rapidly ages to death. We do that all the time in Smallville, and it's really fun that happens here. There's this great exchange she has with this Luthor Corp employee, or I guess, maybe he's a Lex Corp employee now, where they're talking about how Meteor Rock made people go insane, and that's a thing that drives me nuts with Smallville, because sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. You have a lot of characters who seem nuts because they were kind of crazed already when they first got their kryptonite, and then you have other characters who seem fine even after the kryptonite, like the lady who can see the future in the first season, and then you have characters like Bob Rickman, who was kind of crazy, or at least used his power for evil. But then his partner, I forget his name, was a decent man who used his powers for good. So it doesn't drive everybody crazy, but even this is still pretending like it does, like later seasons of the show did. But she has this great exchange with him where she says, where they're talking about how they're talking about first season Crypto Freaks. By the way, this book is doing everything it can to not just be generic early days of Superman stories. It's trying really hard to root itself in the world of Smallville, even though we're rarely ever in the town Smallville. But that didn't stop the series, because it wasn't either for the whole back half most of the time. And there's a lot of really nice callbacks and just kind of story points and thematic things that feel like the way Smallville would do a thing. And one of them is actually talking about what Meteor Rock did to people. And so they're talking about how there was a bug guy who actually see in Earth 2 at the end of this, which is fun. But Greg. But you have they talk about how there was a bug guy who could control bugs, and there was a girl who could control bees. And one of them says, well, how come could the insect kid control bees, and how come the bee kid couldn't control insects? And that's great. Like I said, a really nice tongue-in-cheek quality with this. So Lex tells... So we'll get back to the Lex subplot, and he tells Tess Mercer in his mind, because by the way, her personality is not just like a copy of her, but apparently kind of like her actual soul. At the end of this, she's going to come back out and she's going to be a character again. I don't know how exactly we're going to use her, if she's going to be like a robot body or something, but she basically gets digitized and she's around, and Clark and Chloe and everybody can interact with her. So, or I say Clark and Emil Hamilton at least. So he gives her an ultimatum because he wants the secret of Superman, and he knows that she knows who he is, and she has a room locked away in her mind, kind of like the room that Lex had where he was studying Clark and all the strange things that happened in Smallville, including the car crash when they met. That has the secret of Superman. And he says, let me into that room or I will give myself brain damage, which is such a Lex move. And it's kind of crazy because it's kind of similar actually to what Lionel does in season 3, where like he's willing to give his own son brain damage just so that he doesn't learn a secret. And here he's willing to do that to himself. I don't know if he's bluffing or not. It's really hard to say, but he's going to take that brain machine, and he has pinpointed where that metaphorical room is in her head. He knows where in her mind that information is, where in his mind that information is stored, and he's going to mess up that part of his head in order to kill her, essentially. And he's going to give himself brain damage. It might also kill him. He doesn't know. But he wants that information so bad, he's willing to do that. And given that he doesn't have that relationship with Clark anymore, I do find myself wondering a little bit, having not read the first 2 volumes in a while, if I really buy that he would go that far, if he would be that drastic about it. But then he assumes that his background is all tied up in that. So if he knows the secret of Superman, that gives him, he probably thinks, a lot of who he was, because he doesn't know he was friends with Superman. He knows he was friends with Clark, and he doesn't know that Clark's Superman. So I guess I don't know about that. But yeah, so that's a little bit of a question mark for me, if he would go that far. Like, why is he that obsessed with Superman, having not had a lot of dealings with him yet? But maybe it's just because, he does care enough about Superman to irradiate him so he can see where he is at all times. I think it might just be that classic Lex thing of he isn't as important and can't have that legacy and can't save the world in his way if Superman is around, and so he needs to know who he is. Maybe that's all it is. But anyway, so yeah, that brain damage thing, I was like, wow, that's very Smallville. So he's going to use that. Originally, he's going to use that machine, but then it gets stolen out from under him by Oliver Queen, who is going to use it in order to let me get to that section real quick. So he's going to use that so that Chloe can get the, and this is all a little easy, but so that she can see the last memories of the doppelganger Chloe from Earth 2. And conveniently, her last memories are, of course, her life flashing before her eyes, and that's just an assumption that they make, that, well, when you die, your life flashes before your eyes, so we'll be able to get a kind of clip show of her whole life, or at least the last days of her life that are really important to us. And it actually does end up working that way. And that's all a little bit easy. And the pseudoscience there is really funny. It's we all know that your life flashes before your eyes. That's just what happens. I don't know that it necessarily does with everybody. I don't know that we can know that because it's difficult to interview a person about their death. So anyway, it's also very convenient that Lex and Chloe both need this machine at the same time. And it makes for kind of some fun drama, though, because they steal it out from under Lex, and then he's not able to use that machine in order to give himself brain damage. And then the third subplot takes away Lex's ability to track Superman. So all of these subplots mess up Lex, and that's kind of fun. Let's go back for a second now and talk about Superman's plan for uh, getting to the getting into the Speed Force and seeing the Black Racers. So I'm looking for that suit. There it is. So Emil Hamilton has this idea in the first volume that if Superman went directly into the sun, he might be able to speed up his metabolism to the point where that radiation would dissipate and Lex couldn't track him anymore. But the risk he would take is that he might turn into pure energy. And I like that. I can't remember who it is. There's somebody in this that maybe it's Bart, who's like, I don't know enough about science to decide if that's ridiculous. And I thought that was really funny because it does sound insane. It's ridiculous. What I didn't realize is that we were in a again a really fun kind of tongue-in-cheek way playing around with the electro suit era of Superman from the 90s. I had no idea that's where we were going, and we do it in a actually kind of clever way. We play around with it by not actually going there. It's like, that is even too silly for this material. I don't even think it necessarily is, but I like that we dance around it, because this is what Smallville would do, right? We certainly do, because we get like the beginnings of, I skipped over, we get the beginnings of like Gorilla Grodd and what might be Gorilla City, and that whole thing is very strange. It's another experiment that I think is maybe connected to Lex, where there is a gorilla that I think was, I'm rusty on, or I'm confused about this. I don't know if it was unclear to me what exactly was going on. It's like a brain of a person that is disconnected from their body, and I don't even know who's the male and the female in this situation. And then there's a gorilla that was experimented on that might have been a person before, and they're in love, and the gorilla carries the brain on the back of it, and they're gonna go start Gorilla City. That is a thing in this. So it's willing to go to insane places, but it's also willing to do things in a comic book that you couldn't do in a TV show. It has that 60s Batman comic thing where it tries not to go like too insane, far beyond what you can do on a TV budget. But the guys that made that book said that they were trying to make it like what you could do on a movie budget at that point. So beyond TV, but they didn't want to go too much farther than that. This does some very comic book, visual things, but he also seems to not want to go too much farther than what a TV show could do if it had, an even better budget than Smallville did. So we don't have to do a 40-second Doomsday fight, for instance, because if they wanted to, they could actually draw Doomsday. But they're also not gonna go as far as to have our main character be made of pure energy for a while. And so instead of that, what we get, but it's not lame in the way some of those things were in Smallville. What we do instead is, Emil Hamilton says, we weren't sure about sending you into the sun, but I always have my people continue to work on ideas even while we're trying other things in case we can make them work later. Like we're always continuing the research. And so they make a containment suit for Superman in case he decided to try to go into the sun. And the idea is that he could store energy. And so now this other situation comes up where that suit might be warranted. And so Superman is going to use that suit in order to go up against the Speed Demon, against the Black Racer. He's called both of those things. And that's what's really fun about it is we use that suit so that he doesn't become pure energy, but the suit looks like the pure energy Superman suit. That's a lot of fun. So I skipped over the Jay Garrick thing. So what happens is they go see Jay Garrick, who is an old man now, and he's living alone, and he's kind of sad and pathetic. And he's still wearing, this is one of the things that makes him very pathetic, he's still wearing his Flash suit for some reason, at least the jacket. And Barry tells him, because he says that he also has seen the Black Racer, and he quit, and he stopped running, and he just left everything behind. and he ran away from his problems. And one of the big motifs in this volume as well is running towards something as opposed to running away from something. And so Bart says it was your responsibility to stop him, and he says that because Jay Garrick tells him that the only way he thinks to stop the Black Racer is for Bart to die, is for Bart to go there and basically kill himself. And he's like, why didn't you do that? You could have stopped the vicious cycle. Like, every speedster has to deal with this, and we've got innocent people dying because the Black Racer is sucking the life force out of regular people because he can't get speedsters. But if we went up against him, we could beat him, and it would kill us, but then he wouldn't, but then the Black Racer wouldn't be around anymore. And it's apparently just a force of nature that can't help what it does. And so he's real dour about it, and he's real candid about it. And then Bart is equally candid and is like, okay, why didn't you do that? And so by the end of this, even though Superman puts this containment suit on and goes up against the Black Racer himself, that is apparently not enough, and it still takes somebody of the Speed Force. I don't really know why. I feel like if Superman can store that energy, and that allows him to run fast enough to get into the Speed Force, I don't know why he can't beat it without having to kill himself. That was a thing I was a little bit unsure of. But anyway, Bart ends up making the big self-sacrifice at the end, and it's actually pretty touching. It's kind of sad. I was pretty impressed with it, and the kind of melancholy feeling I had at the end of this, and that's a lot of why it's my favorite volume. And like, we flash back to the end of that first episode with Bart Allen, where he says, if you can catch me, then maybe I'll stick around. And that seemed also like a very Smallville thing to do. Cutting back and forth between that, it was kind of tear-jerkery in a TV way, and I really liked it. It's quite good. And then Jay Garrick kind of comes around at the end and agrees that he made mistakes, and he has a nice touching conversation with Superman. I kind of hope that we see him again. One thing that's kind of interesting about the season 11 comics is, because even though Smallville was a prequel reimagining, it was also Superman, even though he's not allowed to be called Superman until the end for at least the last 4 years, if not 5. And he ends up going up against pretty much his entire rogues gallery. There's very little left to do after Smallville, which is why it was kind of a strange notion to me to try to keep it going in comic form. I was like, it already overstayed its welcome. It was on for too long. Why on earth would you want to see more of it? And the answer to that for Miller seems to be, well, let's expand the DC universe and see what the rest of these lores might look like in a kind of goofy Smallville way. And so each volume past that first has been about a different pocket of the DC universe. So the second one was all about the mythology of Batman. Barbara Gordon shows back up again here briefly. I really like her in this book. Her banter with Lois is a little too CW, and some of the things that they say can be a little facepalmy, but I expect that. It's this material. And again, it's walking that line between making fun of this stuff and being authentically this show, and I think it balances that really nicely. And then this third volume is all about Flash. I know later on there's a Green Lantern volume. I don't know what else we end up doing, but I like that we go back to the Justice Society here, still keeping it very much rooted in the lore of Smallville. And now at the end, because we got rid of that isotope with that containment suit, Superman is able to go be with Lois again, and we're kind of more or less back to status quo. There's a part of me that kind of wishes that this book could go totally its own way and let Lex know that Clark is Superman and get all of his memories back, because I've said this a lot, but I spent 7 years with that character only for him to get written out of the show, not be played by the same actor, have to be like crippled and charred and messed up, and then brought back by like half a dozen different actors in like burn in makeup that makes him look all deformed, and he's got like Bane masks on and stuff, and then he comes back finally, Rosenbaum, one more time at the very end just so that he can lose his memory, and it's awful. I hate that. I spent all this time trying to see, what would win out, his nature or his nurture. And ultimately, of course, he does go bad. But when you get to the end, you get the sense from the last scenes of that episode that Lex is just gonna be bad because he was born that way. And like, it's not that he was raised that way, because he doesn't even remember how he was raised, and he still turns out that way in the future. Okay, so what's the point? Like, who cares? Why did I spend all that time seeing if Lex could carve out his own path and go his own way and be his own person? Apparently he can't do that. Apparently destiny was always the answer, so who cares? Why is that interesting? This book is trying to turn that around, which I appreciate, but so I'm at a catch-22. Like, I can't decide what I would prefer, because if we went back to the Lex who got all of his memories back, you no longer have that question, because he did take that path and he did turn into evil Lex Luthor. But then he was inevitably always probably going to go that way, because the show wasn't trying to completely reinvent Superman. It was still always going to be Clark becomes the altruistic, positive superhero, and Lex becomes the egotistical megalomaniac. But I just want to read the character that I had, and this is trying to do that while still kind of bringing him back to first season Lex in a way. I'm intrigued by this. I'm very curious to see where that all ends up going, and I'm assuming that at this point getting his memories back is off the table. I hope that he doesn't get them back and then lose them just to get back to status quo. That would make me angry, I think. I don't want to see that happen. But I really like this volume. This is definitely my favorite of the three so far. So I'll be back with 4 at some point in the not too distant future. Thanks a lot for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of this volume if you have read it, and of Smallville Season 11 at large. And if you would like to make a request for the Comic Vault or for a movie for me to review that I have not seen before, you can do a movie, you can do the first episode of a TV show, or you can do a comic or a trade or a graphic novel. You can become a patron at patreon.com/geekvolution. The $15 tier allows you to do that. You can do a one-time request and just stay in there for 1 month, let that roll over, and then you can jump off that tier if you don't want to stay there, and you'll still get your request, or you can stick around there if you were so inclined and stay in the rotation, but that's completely up to you. Just $15 gets you a request, and sticking in there just stays in the rotation, so I'll get to you every few months. Right now we have so many people at that tier. 3 to 4 months is about how long it takes to get a request at the moment. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you again next time. I'm Captain Logan. Happy reading.